Hey everybody, welcome again to another episode of the Cultural Reset. We are here with an incredible artist. He's a rapper, a songwriter, a poet, a performer, a hip hop artist. There's nothing he can't do. He is straight out of NYC itself. Please welcome Keith Tryfle Hudson.
Going on, everybody?
Hey, welcome,
How
welcome.
you doing? How you feeling?
I'm feeling pretty good.
Yeah,
Good.
that's
Feeling really good, yeah.
so let's get to know you a little bit. Could you tell us about how you got your start in the music industry or just music in general?
Yeah. So I'm raised in a musical family. My father was a reggae singer. I was kind of raised around it. I wanted nothing to do with music when I was younger. I was literally trying to run away from it. I became an orphan. A lot of things happened that took life into a different path for me.
Mhm.
I spent a little bit of time in California after leaving New York after my mom passed. Uh, with my brother, we out there. I was going through a lot, and he was like, our dad made music. You're struggling right now. You need an outlet because it was like, if I don't find an outlet, you know, I'm gonna find something. And
Mhm.
so, music was that for me, where sports wasn't really enough. And made my first song. It was called "Slow Down, Ma." You'll never hear it ever. I buried it, even though you wouldn't know because my brother helped me craft that first verse. So even though I wrote it, I sound like a veteran already when I started rapping. And then just helping him sell his music and just meeting people that way. And like back when people actually had CD players, we sold
Mhm.
a lot of CDs. And I just I came back home after high school, and I really, really decided I'm gonna make music that touches hearts and minds,
Mhm.
and not eyes, hearts and minds. That was very important for me, and I think I didn't comprehend what I was thinking then because you want to get known or whatnot, but hearts and minds last longer. That makes any
Mhm.
sense?
Yeah, leaving a lasting imprint on their emotions or their thought process,
Yeah,
definitely. So you said that you were on the West Coast in high school, and that's when you got your start?
that's when I started making music. Yeah, when
That's
I
when you
first
started.
started actually, writing like art. I mean,
Mhm.
I was already drawing since I was like 9 years old, and like writing poems or whatnot. So I was always expressing myself. But I turned to hip hop and music about like high school.
So how have you come around on music, I guess, because you said that you wanted nothing to do with it in the beginning?
I think because it caused a lot of like stress. Like family members wanted my inheritance money when I didn't even know what that was
Mhm.
when I was younger. And so I'm like, all right, cool. Everyone wants everything about my dad, and my father passed right before I was born, so there was a disconnect there.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Everyone, asking about him and that time and whatnot. I'm just like, man, I just want my mom. I don't care about anything what you guys want. And the person who took me and my brother ended up being this really really awful person too. Like think Eminem's relationship with his mother. Like my godmother was an abuser and also stole my brother's inheritance money. So rap started for me in a very very dark place, and it
Yeah.
was like it was either like like rap or do something worse. And
Right.
even though my lyrical style is more based off of like Nas or Rakim or even Eminem
Mhm.
or Hove, I would say DMX actually was the first person who actually gave me confidence to actually rap, because I was going to a school in California that they cared that I was a New Yorker, and not in a good way. During that time, they were like, "Oh, you're from New York," so
What did they
they
think about that? Like, what did they think about you being from New York?
they had issues with it. At that time, sadly, the way the world was and the way we thought in our areas, that's just kind of like I wouldn't have done that in New York, but I had friends who, if someone from Cali was in New York, they probably would have had problems. So
Mm.
I understood their logic in terms of like, why you here? We're gonna hurt you.
Was that just within the rap community?
That was just in the urban community in general. Like, if if you're clearly from somewhere else that we got a problem with, like California truly loved Tupac.
Mhm.
So like sadly I understood that, like, you know, they lost their modern day version of like Malcolm X.
Yeah.
So they were like, yo, you're from New York, we got a problem with you.
Right.
Right.
You know, and so I understood it in a sense, whereas like California and Baltimore, or let's say Oakland or Baltimore, their poverty is even different than New York's poverty. Like, you know, in New York, you can hop on the subway and, you know, go see Hope. You can go see the Christmas tree. You can see so many things. When you're going through it in Baltimore or Oakland, there ain't no hope around you. There's no metropolitan to, like, you know, run to and see something different. So those kids were really feeling that Tupac died. And the closest thing to what they hated at the time was a New Yorker who wasn't shy about it.
So how did you handle that?
You know, I could take a punch. I got jumped a little bit. But, you know, I kind of had a sense of self, which is what they don't want to give us in these areas. So my self-worth made me kind of a jerk to them too, because I was like, you know, look, man, I come to class just to do this and leave. Someday school is going to be over. So me kind of being like that was almost me ignoring their plight, what they were going through. Like, even though I didn't have a father physically, my father had a legacy. My mother was a scholar. So I came from people who were in the hood, but they were like, yo, you're going to learn music. You're going to learn all these things. And so that self-worth, even though I fit stats, but I didn't fit in reality. It was like, yeah, I'm an orphan, but I had parents who did love me. They just, you know, had sad endings in a sense.
Right.
Whereas these kids had, you know, their siblings were shot or in jail. You know, I had two, you know, one who was more like me, you know, and then one who was, you know, he was on that opposite side of the fence, being a hustler. So I had examples.
Right.
So you kind of like had an idea of what the outcome would be either way.
Yeah.
So rap was almost like a survival tactic.
Yes, that's exactly what it was for me at the time. It was like, all right, this needs to happen. And then I pretty much got one more gift. I left my godmother's house and I moved into my aunt's house in the suburbs of California, which is a completely different experience. And, you know, passive aggressiveness is almost just as frustrating as aggressiveness. So I got to see that other side of the world or whatnot, and then compare that with, you know, being from Queens, New York, you know, which is like the most diverse county in the whole country. Like, so for me, I didn't really understand us being separate. Like in Queens, everyone's on top of each other.
Right.
So at that point, I was like, okay, everyone's different. There are different types of black people, different types of white people, different types of everyone or whatnot. So I kind of learned very young that, like, you really can't, you have to know someone to kind of understand them.
Right. How did that, you know, influence your music creation process? Because I know that it sounds like you were, you know, kind of thrown between worlds, like you're thrown into this
Yeah.
world.
I would say it made me I wanted to make music that someone from Queens could understand and that someone from Amsterdam could understand. I always wanted to actually make sure that someone could actually hear my music and be like, okay, I like this, even though I'm not from where they're from, but I understand it.
Right. So you wanted to use music as sort of like this universal, like uniting factor.
Yeah.
And all understand this one message.
Which probably, in its own way, hindered my career in a sense.
How so?
You know, you can't. People want to be able to put something in a box. When you don't put yourself in a box, you're unwilling to put yourself in a box. You end up being like, that person's talented and cool, but I don't know what to do with them. I don't know where to put them. I don't know how to
market them.
Exactly, and that frustrates people.
Mm-hmm.
That's
You
a
know,
big part of what we talk about with KCR.
but I will say, like, I didn't probably start marketing myself properly until I'm like 36 right now, probably like 33. I made a one-man musical about my life from 7 to 17, literally like an audio book essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone understood that because it was more of a story with music.
So I'm thinking about your 100 songs for 100 people right now, because I feel like that ties so many things that you've talked about together, like just the fact that there are so many different people, black, white, Hispanic, like, and can be totally different people just
Mhm.
depending on your environment almost. And when I first saw that you were writing 100 songs about 100 different people, Nick and I were like, are they all real people? Like, how many people, how
No,
many perspectives, how many, like, are they all based off of people you know? Is it all just
they're
like that human connection?
yeah, it's been everyone I know. Well, he, people I know, people that I cold reached out to. It's like, hey, I'm been doing this project, and they trusted me to like make a song about them. So I interview them.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I send them like an actual questionnaire. They answer the questionnaire, and I look at all the words, and I kind of look at their story. I make the beat based around their personality, what I see energy wise, and I write the lyrics, and I give them another way to look at themselves. Which
That is so interesting. I've never heard of anything like that. So basically people heavily influence your personal artwork, and you're basically interpreting the stories that they're telling you in order
But
to
I
like.
feel like this is almost a form of communication for you, because like we said earlier, for you rap was almost like survival mode, and now it's almost like you're reclaiming it, and you're like, I'm going to use this for a productive purpose. I'm going to use this to
yeah,
show to enlighten people about humanity.
mhm.
And but it's almost,
She
do
got it.
you,
She got it.
do you
I've
see?
been I've been talking to a lot of people about it for the last like 4 or 5 months, and like get the first person to like just fully kind of just like bullseye. That's exactly what it is. And even for me, I used to tell people that like if I was ever happy, I don't know if I could make hip hop music. Like that was a thing for me when I was like, I don't know if I ever got fully happy if I could do it. And this is probably the happiest I've been like as an artist. Like I would say yesterday was the 29th year of me not having my mother.
Mhm.
And it was the first time that I decided, you know what? Let me pretend she never left.
Hmm.
Like the same energy I've used over like every year to kind of be like, like mopey or just like balanced on this day, you know, I was like, I can also use that energy to kind of just pretend she never left and that she's still here.
And I feel like she is, in a sense, because I'm sure she's one of the people in one of your songs, if not.
I'm, I made a
Is,
lot of songs about her,
yeah, I was gonna
but
say if not several, because I feel like that, your ability to capture people's energy and essence in a song. I mean, I was looking at your most recent album, which you dropped pretty recently. Uh,
so with the project, every 10 songs I'm releasing an album. So this actually kind of worked out perfectly. The third one comes out on Friday.
This
oh my
Friday.
gosh,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
great.
yeah. So there's been It's Not About Me, No Man Is an Island, which was
Hmm.
late February, and then A Beautiful Nothing is
On what
on
is
Friday,
that? May
14th.
14th? Okay, May 14th. May 14th. So when this interview is out, the album will already be out, so make sure to check that out. Shameless plug. But uh
I mean, I have a question about
yeah,
Yeah.
go for it.
like just your career journey in and of itself. Like, as an artist, you seem to have a really fond appreciation for people, right? And you seem to have
Mhm.
a fond, sense of your own identity as well. Where does your father fit into this? I know that, you really have tried hard to, distinguish yourself as your own artist and who you are as a person, but I'm curious, how is he represented in your music, if at all? How has he influenced you in a way?
I mean, I think the first thing is I'm junior, so it's like it's like I got the name no matter what, so I really can't change that part. Um, I think there was an interview. It was in a newspaper. Well, it was like some old paper years ago that my dad was in an interview, and he had this interviewer kind of butchered his album, Too Expensive. It's a very experimental album that he made in like the mid '70s when he first came over here or whatnot, and it was like Virgin Records wanted him to be Bob Marley, and they went to school together, like they were contemporaries. And my dad was like, "Well, I mean, I'm gonna do some music. I'm gonna work with what's that group called the Soul Syndicate. I'm gonna work with them, and then we're gonna do some crazy stuff." And like one of the songs, my partner, she loves it because it sounds like jazz meets reggae meets James Brown. I'm just like, my dad tried something really crazy, and it bombed compared to pretty much to every critic. Mm-hmm. But this critic was shredding my father in an interview, and my dad is just having the most joyous conversation with him. And my partner, she's like, it's like, you read it out loud. It sounds like you said all these things. Like she's like, he's like, you're who you are when you answer questions. This sounds like you. But your dad is talking to this interviewer 40 years ago, and it sounds like you. I was like, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, but you don't really know. I mean, you didn't really know his like speech patterns or intuition.
No. If you do find videos of him, I'm very similar. Pretty much, he's pretty much me with dreads. And my brother, who's like 8 years older than me, he's like you get older, you like more and more like dad every day. And even though we both look very, very similar, I look a little bit more like our father, somewhat or whatnot, because I'm a little bit taller. But musically, I think I was a product of my environment. Like I vividly remember 1992, Queens, New York. Like New York in the early '90s. Just there was something about that time that just sunk into me and my brother, to where even though we were from, like I'm from New York, but I'm full-blooded, Rastafarian. It was just at that time in New York, there was so much bad, good, and vibrant. It was just like, it was a crazy time. It just sunk into my soul. And like Nas came out with Illmatic in 1994, which is when I was going through a lot of hardship. And then seeing someone like me from Queens, New York, saying, whose world is this? The world is yours. That did so much for me. Because, you could hear songs and go, you know what? I'm like that too. I'm going to be more street. Whereas I heard it and I was like, no, he means the world is yours. And he's not even in Queens 24/7 anymore. He's now taken that and gone everywhere else. So that was my interpretation.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'm also I feel like you're giving me a better understanding of kind of like how the rap industry and the music industry are almost separate but have been merged. I feel like the rap community has kind of like been, rapping and creating music and using these skills like out of survival tactics or out of just like pure rage or like a product of their environment or something. But rap today is very much marketed. Like there are many rappers out there who are just like, this is rap, this is our product, we have this offer to you, it's nicely packaged. Do you feel like the rap music industry and the rap community are now one, or do you feel like there is still like a separation there?
So there's rap music, then there's hip hop music,
right?
And then you also have like art or artists, like for example, there's no other time in hip hop music that me as an artist will still have a chance. Rap has been around since the '70s. Rap is already 10 years older than me, so rap has a fan base that's now 50, 60 years old. And so I can still exist now. Whereas if you go back and look at Run DMC, by the time they were 30, at that time, which was like early 1994, rap fans were not 30 years. Rap fans were only still in their 20s.
Mm-hmm.
So they were looking for the next person who was closer to their age.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's now blended. So I'm one of the few artists who, I don't hate the new era at all. I actually think the new era of hip hop, because they've now made it to where they can go do whatever they want to do. I can go say that, hey, I'm like a Renaissance artist type rapper. I'm creating like a Van Gogh type career.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, it may get really popular once I'm gone, but I'm still making it, type of thing.
I think there's something to be said too, you know, to the fact that the hip hop sound, like back in that era, back in like the 70s,
Mhm.
80s, 90s, like it was very niche, you know,
Yeah.
like very, very niche. And then now, right now, like you have pop music that's kind of adopted these hip hop aesthetics.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's,
I feel like a lot of different music styles have adopted the hip hop and rap styles.
right, like just popular music, really.
Well,
Hip hop is now
yeah.
pop in a way. So, I mean, I think that's a part of it too. Like, but in a way, I want to know what your thoughts were on that because, you know, some people have this perspective that, you know, it's weird that pop is now hip hop and people think it's just, you know, the continued appropriation of black music, like the continued repackaging and remarketing.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
it's different.
It's where it stopped evolving. I want to say about 2003 or 4, hip hop stopped pushing forward, and as they were like, as you know, if you hear Jay-Z say it, hustlers got in the game, and he was one of them. Like people who were not really hip hop heads got in and created a new way for us to actually make money and thrive, which I can't argue with because it's better than us being dead.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and so that new way of others being successful created a very saturated margin. Like there's only probably about 10% of rappers who got into it, who decided they wanted to be the best, who were like successful.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the ones who are successful, they don't care about the past. And it's okay too. It's just the ones who really wanted to do it for art, there's not that many of them, believe it or not.
Sure.
Or they didn't make it because it became so saturated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that applies to really all of the music industry right now. I think we
Does.
talked with another artist that we interviewed. You know, we were having a conversation about what, you know, I think it was Maya J too. You know, we were talking about why people are getting into this industry. Like now the market is more oversaturated than it's ever been, and it's because, you know, music is far more accessible than it's ever been. And publishing it and getting it like bought and sold, like it's more accessible.
Well, it's because you don't really need a label at this point, you know?
You don't.
Like you can, sure, it helps, you know, like having that money from a label is great, but the thing is that the technology is very much available. The streaming sources, like getting your music out there is a lot easier.
Exactly.
I want to know what your ideal is, because, you know, we are the cultural reset and we're looking to the future of the music industry and like trying to realize what parts of the music industry need to change or recognize the parts that are changing. So how do you see music and the music industry playing a role, maybe for you in particular, just in general?
Well, I actually think you guys play the biggest role.
Really?
Okay.
No, I'm being dead serious. The gatekeepers disappeared. Like, you know, like go watch it's on Netflix, Stretch and Bobbito. You know those two?
Oh.
I don't, but
So
I'm going to need to.
Those two are very, very important. Literally, when I tell you that a Spanish kid and a white kid had a radio show at, I believe, Columbia University, 1990. When I tell you that all of the modern day great hip hop artists, every last one of them went through that radio station.
Really?
Like it's one of the most fascinating documentaries you'll ever see, to the point where when they actually got successful and got picked and got bought out to go to Hot 97, that success fractured them, because it was just like it wasn't like Stretch Armstrong, he was like, well, I just wanted to play records and hang out with Nas. That's all I wanted to do. Like Illmatic got debuted on that show. Biggie had his freestyle that everyone remembers on that show. Eminem was one of the last people to go through that show. When I tell you that whole Stretch and Babita. DJ Stretch and Babita. So I'll message you about it as well and tell you. But it's one of the most like gatekeepers aren't really a thing anymore. So those people used to be like managers or marketers and all that or whatnot. They decided because of social media that they can be stars too.
Right.
So you have people who are really good at marketing and promo who decided, you know what, why get an artist who won't listen to me? I'll be a star too.
True. But do you feel like that's kind of, made music a little bit less quality nowadays, like this type of accessibility? People just kind of feeling it.
You mean the homemade mixes and such?
Just in general, like what Maya J was saying, like people are just in the industry now just to become famous or to get rich instead of just being about the music. So do you think that that's had an impact on the quality of music nowadays?
Of course. I also think shelf life has shrunk drastically. So like you might get on, but you're probably going to be done just as fast. And I also think artists don't know who they are. Like, I didn't know who I was as an artist. I was probably about like 28, 29. Like I had a teacher in high school who told me, Keith, you're not a rapper. I was like, what do you mean? She's like, you're an artist masquerading as a rapper.
Interesting.
Did she think that you had some other creative talent? Like,
I mean, I've drawn since I was a kid. I did acting. I was just like, at that time I was focused on rap, but she pretty much kind of told me then that I couldn't pick up on it. Like, I like to connect. I want to give you something to think about. Like my biggest time as an artist was when I did my show Lost Rebel for the first time live in front of people, telling them my whole story from 7 to 17 with the songs in between. I had friends tell me like, yo, I've heard Save a Spot for me so many times, but seeing you do that song live after you explaining the monologue that when your mom passed away, hearing the song, it just gave it so much more life to me now.
Right. I think that is a very cultural resetting characteristic of you, because I think that you have like reimagined what music can be, as like it can be a story. It can be told between poetry. Was it poetry? Was it speaking poetry?
No, it's poetry. I mean, like it I guess it's kind of like, how to explain it? Those people came and sat down and watched that show live. They were invested. I had their full attention. When someone even listens to the audiobook version of Lost Rebel, they know they're listening to that. They will listen to the whole thing through because I have their attention. We used to go, like, well, me anyway, at Virgin Records, I had to go there, find the CD I wanted, test it out there, buy it, go buy batteries for my CD player, open everything. I was invested. At that point, I had to at least listen to 6 of those songs on the album to know if it was good or not.
Right.
Whereas now, if the album comes out on streaming, we're not invested. Like, we didn't do anything to earn it.
Right. Yeah. I think that's a great point. I remember I saw an interview with Beyonce talking about that, how like the art of the project is kind of disappearing a little bit,
Personally, that makes me sad. I love sitting down and listening to an album from beginning to end because I really think it shows true craftspersonship to be able to make a piece of art.
Well, I think that actually that's now the artist's responsibility. Because music is the only place where that happens. You watch a movie, you're going to give that movie your undivided attention because that movie presented itself to where like not everybody can do this. That's the reason why I made an audio. That's the reason why I'm making 100 songs like you, because not everyone can do it.
Right.
Not everyone wants to do it. Not everyone would care enough about anyone else to do it. So I use that thought process to make this project, to make myself stand out as well.
Right. I also wanted to ask too, and it's kind of taking a shift towards a little bit of a different direction since we are a little bit short on time. I wanted to ask about your experience being Black and male and navigating the music industry. Do you feel like your identity has had some sort of impact on how you've been treated within the industry, or what do you think the industry can do better?
You know, that one, well, I mean, being in hip hop, you know, I've never really had that much pushback on that. Where I've found pushback has been, let's say, music venues, especially in New York City. Somewhere in the early 2000s, music venues were essentially like, you know what, we're not booking hip hop. And so, like, you know, I would throw shows and it would be so hard to get them to be like, we'll let you have a show here. Whereas if you're a band, most venues will let you perform. Now, I couldn't be mad at some of these venues because a lot of hip hop shows have incidents. It happens. It's not like it's, you know, it's not coming out of nowhere, but punk rock bands never have to deal with that. Like they can even get tours. Punk rock band, if they just message in business, like, you know, properly, they can literally get a tour without being known.
Wow.
And
do you think that's just a stigma that surrounds hip hop?
It's
Like
only around
the stigma of, if I have a hip hop show here, my venue is going to be wrecked or something is going to happen.
I think it's deeper than that.
You think it's deeper than that?
Yeah, I think it has.
You know, for my own, I guess this is where my personal experience changed me slightly, is that losing my parents and losing everything when I was a kid and having like full on enemies, you know, when I was younger, like, you know, like the people that I couldn't stand, I was so wrapped up into that I never cared about any other oppression. I was so vengeful or angry towards, like, to what happened, that I never cared if a cop looked at me twice sideways. I never cared if someone was like, you know, looking at me. I'm just like, whatever, man. Like, it's literally like, I can't care about you because I have bigger things to worry about. In my mind, I had like life or death things. And so by experiencing that so young, it kind of made me realize that everything else wasn't really that, it's important. But for me, it was like, well, doesn't matter if they look at me that way, because my mom died, and my grandmother died, and my grandfather died, and that's gonna happen to me someday. So I need to try to find some joy out of this, or you know what I mean? So, but it is very prominent for our culture.
Yeah.
Like, it is something that we have to deal with. And we're not trained to deal with it. We're not taught to deal with it. We don't know how to, there's conflicting ways on how to deal with it.
Right.
Like, I learned more about dealing with it through the X-Men, the Marvel characters, the X-Men. She's looking at me like, what are you saying?
No, I'm thinking about it because I often you hear stories that related to superhero stories. Spider-Man is a common one where people are just like, I relate to this character and that gives me hope, or this is something I'm holding on to.
Well, if we're talking about relating, I related more as like just as a person, as a kid, I related more to Batman as an orphan. But when I tell you the X-Men are actually, Professor Xavier is Martin Luther King. Malcolm X is Magneto. That's how Stan Lee wrote them. He wrote them during the Civil Rights era. That's why the comic actually failed early in the 60s, only to be rebooted by Chris Claremont in the early 70s to what it is now. They are written.
You're a comic book fan too?
Oh yeah. But
yes.
I'm a storyteller, man. It's, you know, but like, and that's why I understand, I understand archetypes. I understand, like, I wrote my one-man show, Lost Rebel, as a coming-of-age story. And I already know what I'm doing after the 100-song project, which is, which will probably, it's essentially the sequel to Lost Rebel. It's about my time in my 20s and when I was my own villain in my 20s. Mm-hmm. In our 20s, we're mostly our own villains. You know, like, we do the most damage to ourselves. And I talk about how, like, I wanted to make it so bad that I missed signs during that time. And I think it's a fascinating story to tell.
What do you mean signs?
So, you know, we all have wants and needs, right? Mm-hmm. You know, and I would say when I was younger, I did certain things that I probably couldn't even do again as an adult because I didn't know any better. I was like, you know what? I just have to, like, I need to survive. I need to finish school. I need to learn. I was basically just off of need because I had no other choice. Mm-hmm. My 20s was all want. Mm-hmm. I wanted to make it. I wanted to actually be the best rapper. I wanted to actually, you know, party with friends. I wanted to make money. It was all want. Mm-hmm. And, you know, want, depending on where it's coming from, it can leave you blind to other things.
Right.
It's it's like,
very,
you know,
shiny distraction.
Exactly.
You know, I do want to say, I know we're coming closer to the end of our interview with you, but I feel like it's important to just note that as, you know, like, as the cultural reset, I feel like it's so amazing to be able to say to you, like, we've got your back. Like, you know, when you launch albums, like, we'll be there with you, we'll share it, and it's just like, it feels so good to be able to be like, we can support you, you know, like, and with no expectations, just be like, I think, you know, you have obviously put in a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, and thought and emotion, and you know, like, your ability to just keep on going in your life into your music. And I think that is a level of artistry that's, I mean, it's more than just an artistry.
It really shows, like, the effort that you, like, the experience that you've had, it really shows in your music. And, like, I mean, even like Shay was saying, you know, we want to be that kind of beacon where, like, artists like you, we can, like, support you and just endlessly, just because we believe in what you do, you know. Mm-hmm. So we don't want this relationship to end here. We want to stay in contact with you. We would love, you know, to feature on you on more stuff that we do, if you're interested in doing that.
That's why I got into hip hop. That's, like, from when I started getting into it, and my friends all love it still. That's why we liked it. It was for that. Like, I deal with a lot of producers who, like, right now I'm making my own beats out of necessity because, you know, I can't afford to pay, or I don't want to make songs over beats that everyone else has paid for too. And you know, it's not original. And so I have to do something that's, you know, not in my best skill set, but you know, my father, you know, made beats as well. So it's somewhere in there. So I wanted to be back to where people collaborate. Like, you don't get this with people who make labels anymore, or people who actually, or who just make beats. It doesn't happen. It's not a thing anymore. It's like every other week I get someone saying, hey, you know, your Instagram is low, boosted, blah, blah. And I'm like, you know, you could probably make more money if you just decided to actually help and market all these artists and make yourself a quasi record label, as opposed to the $400 a month you're going to get for, like, a whole year, you know?
Yeah.
Like, that's, like, there's so much more that can be done, I think, with fans, with people. And it's not that I'm against paying anyone. For me as an artist, I've always paid studio times, beats, and things. But if they're not going to actually give you a return on your investment, it's not worth it.
Right. Yeah, I completely agree.
Well, and what I think is so helpful is just having a community that's willing to collab. That's just like, I like your style. Like, let's do something. You know, it's that kind of energy, that kind of like togetherness that I think makes music so special, is because it's able to be like inspiring, and it's, you know, there are other motivations than money. It's like for the art, it's for the creation of this thing that it's going to go out into the world and speak to people in many, many different ways, and your message is carried, and there's some kind of telephone wacky stuff that happens sometimes, and people make their own meanings from your songs. But it's that kind of like beautiful element of music that is so exciting when we are building this community of creatives such as yourself, because I want to be like, you know, go check out the other artists that we've worked with. I mean, like, you know, it's just a lot of connecting. But I want to ask you, yeah,
Our last two questions.
our last two questions just to wrap things up.
Question is going to be for the young artists or the young creators that are navigating the industry. What advice do you have to share with them while they're going through their career path?
Go fail. Whatever your craziest idea, do it now, and also try to have some balance. You know, like I finally like caved in this year and got like a corporate job, and the main skill that I have to do every day, I'm just sitting there looking at it, I'm just like, this job has taught me to reach out to any label or DJ or anyone in a way that they would never expect an artist to reach out to them. Like I'm sitting there, I'm just like, so I know how to go on LinkedIn and look for someone in human resources, or someone, you know, make them a champion or an influencer, or even a decision maker, and write to them professionally and be like, and put my website on there. And, you know, and get a response from them, because they're not used to getting emails like that.
From the artist too.
The business side of the music industry is not used to artists knowing how to approach them professionally. They're used to us showing up at the label or the station and putting it in their face, or reaching out to them on Instagram in their DMs. They're not used to us being like, hey, you know, how do you go about, you know, finding new talent? Telling them a little story, saying, hey, you know, nice release for so-and-so.
Right. So your advice is to don't be afraid to fail, but also don't be afraid to see like the benefit in like just living, like just in being able to like the things that life can teach you, essentially.
Exactly.
As an artist. Nice. And Shay, I don't know if you want to take the last question, but
yeah, well, I just want to give you the opportunity to basically plug anything, you know, like your social media accounts if you have. I know you said you've got a launch coming up.
Yeah.
Go for it.
You can find me on KeithTryfleHudson.com. I bring my website up because I own it. I pay for it. It's never going to go anywhere.
Yes.
Social media ended tomorrow. A lot of people would be in trouble. You know, and that's like, make an email list and don't ever lose it.
Right. Well, I mean, thank you again for just, you know, taking the time to sit down with us and talk about your story. Like it really means the world to us, just to have these conversations with you. So with that being said, everybody, follow us, The Culture Reset, in the link below, but also follow Tryfle in the links below in the description. And we will see you next week with another episode of TCR's Artist Interview Series.
Awesome.
Take care, guys.